Before we get into it today, I just wanted to acknowledge the fact that I really do listen to you guys. I read the comments and I know I can't answer all of them anymore because it's just too many, but I get to as many of them as I can and I read as many as I can. And I recently saw a request asking to show some condos and show some things that are more affordable because the houses that we look at are just too damn expensive. And so we're gonna walk by a few places today that are somewhat affordable, but still kind of ridiculous if you ask me, especially since I know this area well. I know what the condos here used to sell for, and seeing it now is just kind of absurd. But anyhow, we're in Bay Harbor Islands today. There's nothing but condos over here where we're walking through, and we'll take a look at some of them along the walk. But in the meantime, we're gonna talk about who has the most buyer's remorse now. And you guys know I love doing these buyer's remorse stories because they're good lessons to learn in this crazy market, and you can really just avoid making some of these mistakes that a lot of these home buyers made over the past couple of years, so you don't end up with buyer's remorse. So that's why I like covering them. There was a survey done in October of last year from Hippo, and they're an insurance company, and this insurance company wanted to know what are the biggest problems that a bunch of new homeowners are facing right now, and what regrets, if any, do they have?
Now take a look at this place that we're walking past. Last couple of units that sold there were actually a short sale and a foreclosure. The short sale guy bought this place for $224 and literally relisted the property for almost double at $425, and this is a new listing. They just listed it in December last year. Good luck with that one, pal. So many people are like, oh, how can there be a foreclosure when everybody has record high equity? Well, this is how, guys, because most likely this person that lost this place in foreclosure probably had a ton of extra loans on this place, like home equity loans, HELOC loans, and they just couldn't get out of this hole, you know? And this is what happens when you do this. Even when the market's hot, sometimes you still can't climb out of the hole.
Now, one of the biggest regrets that was discovered from this survey that a lot of people were basically blindsided by is that most people were pretty surprised at how expensive it is to own a home after the fact. Just basically the general cost of ownership. It already costs a fortune to get into the property with the down payment, the closing costs, the inspection, the lender fees, you name it. And on top of that, once you get into the house, there's just so many more expenses that people were not prepared for. And since a lot of people like to move into their new house and do some work and make it their own, people are also being blindsided by how much the materials cost to just get this work done, and how much it costs to get a contractor, and all of these things that just really add up to the bill. And one of the biggest problems with this is that because people are just so surprised by the expense, they actually can't afford to do the repairs and the upgrades that they want to do, which ends up leading to deferred maintenance on the property, and in the end ends up costing you even more once you are able to fix it. So delaying the maintenance to a point where, you know, I can't afford it now, but let's worry about it in like 10 more years, that can cause you big trouble when it comes to the cost, you know, of what is it going to cost me to fix it in 10 years from now versus addressing it now. Especially, nothing gets any cheaper, you know, let's face it. Look how much the cost of everything went up over these past couple of years with this insane inflation. You think it's really going to be cheaper to fix something in 10 years versus now? You know, not just the cost of materials and the labor and the service, but also the problems that the deferred maintenance can cost. Another big regret and buyer's remorse that was expressed in this survey was just general ignorance, like not knowing how to fix your water heater, or how to adjust the temperature on your hot water heater, or, you know, where's my gas shutoff valve located, you know, all this stuff, you know, that people just don't know about the house because they never lived there before and they just rushed in and bought it. They have no clue about this property. But the interesting thing about this survey that I haven't seen done before is that they break down the regrets and remorse based on the property type and the locations of the property. So let's take a look at that. So people who bought a multifamily property or a townhouse tend to have more regrets than people who bought other types of properties, and they basically have 18% more regrets. And actually the happiest people who they surveyed were people who bought manufactured homes. And manufactured homes are homes that are assembled in a factory, and then they're basically delivered and transported to their end destination, your plot of land that you have. And these manufactured home buyers were actually 23% less likely to have any home buying regrets than people who bought a single family home or a condo, for example. But even the ones who bought the condos, for example, they're 12% less likely than the multifamily and the townhome owners to have a regret. And same is true for single family homeowners. They're 10% less likely to have a regret. So it seems like people who bought townhomes and multifamily homes are having the most buyer's remorse out of everybody right now.
And this is what I was referring to at the beginning of the video as this is somewhat affordable. Take this place for example. You have units here for $458, $479, and they're pretty decent sized 2 bedrooms. One of them's even a 3 bedroom, $469. Not too bad, right? Well, until you look at the sold prices from literally the peak of the market last summer, $350, $272, okay? Earlier in the year you had $275, $238, and now somehow, some way, these people think they can get a whole extra, $80,000, $100,000 for these units as the market is starting to level off and even go down. But yeah, is it affordable? Technically, a lot of people can afford to buy this, but should you is really the question right now.
And here's a real interesting part of this survey. People who actually bought new homes, meaning new construction, anything that was built between now and 2010 is basically considered new in this survey. And people who bought those type of homes tend to have more buyer's remorse than the ones who bought, an existing single family home or some other kind of existing property. And then based on area, people who purchased a home in the Northeast were the least likely people in this survey to have any sort of home buying regrets, as opposed to people in the South, where 82% of the new homeowners had regrets, followed by people who bought in the western part of the country at 81%, so they're pretty much neck and neck right there. If you bought in the South or the West, lots of regrets there. And people in the Midwest regretting their purchases, 73%, guys. So it's basically everywhere except for the Northeast. So not sure why that is, but it's quite interesting to say the least. And it was determined in this study that one of the easiest things that new home buyers can do to reduce their amount of regret or remorse they might have with their home purchase is to do more thorough inspections of the property before buying. Because some of the biggest expenses that people incur after purchasing the property are broken appliances and water damage. Those are the big ones. And because water damage is one of the biggest problems that new home buyers face, it's also one of the costliest ones too. And you're talking about the average claim for water damage for insurance is like close to 12 grand. So it can really add up, especially if it ends up not being covered. And check this out. It was also determined here that in the new construction properties, those were the properties that were 30% more likely to experience some sort of water damage after the new buyer moved in, which I find very shocking. People buy a brand new home thinking that, this place is going to be solid and I'm not going to have to worry about anything for a while, when in fact it has one of the highest rates of buyer's remorse and problems with water damage. I mean, who would have thought? Here's a nice statistic for everybody that thinks the housing market is stronger than ever. New mortgage applications this week just fell to a low that we haven't seen since 1995. Just from 1 week ago, mortgage applications are down 18%, and from 1 year ago, they're down 41%. So, not going to spend too much time on the overall housing market in this video, have a lot more to cover, but just thought that was relevant and worth mentioning. And for people who want more evidence to see why everything is so messed up right now and evidence of, the economy not doing as great as people think, look no further than this story. It turns out that 1 in 6 retirees right now is looking at going back to work, okay? And these people have typically been out of the workforce for about 4 years, but they're considering going back to work now for various different reasons. And here's the reasons that people are saying they're thinking about going back to work. The number one answer is personal reasons, okay? So to me, that just means I'm broke and retirement's not working out so well. That's most likely the case. I'm assuming, don't know that for sure, but I'm pretty much guessing that's the case. Because the second answer is needing more money. At 53% of the people said that, and 52% of the people said they're getting bored. 45% said they're feeling lonely, and another 45% said inflation. So look at all the answers here, guys. Almost all of them revolve around money, okay? I'm going broke, personal reasons, inflation, right? Only a couple of them are I'm getting bored or I'm feeling lonely, right? Most of the people who are probably considering going back to work are doing it for financial reasons. Let's be real, right? Because if you're wealthy and you're doing okay in retirement, you're not going to go back to work because you're feeling bored. There's plenty of other fun things you can do if you got the money to go out and spend. You can go play golf with your buddies every week. You know, you can go to the country club. You can pick up new hobbies and activities to do with other retired friends if you actually have the money to do that. But my guess is if you don't, then you're bored and lonely because you're sitting at home because you can't afford to do anything else. And this is becoming such a big deal that as of 2021, adults that are 65 to 74 years of age made up about 25.8% of the workforce as of 2021. And that's expected to grow to 30.7% by the time we hit 2031. So basically what they're projecting here is you're going to see more and more people who are at retirement age get into the workforce between now and 2031. And why would they be saying that? Because people need the money, guys. And of course, people that are thinking about doing this need to think about how is this going to impact your Social Security income? Are you going to have to forfeit your Medicare or different things like that? So there are consequences for people who are retired wanting to go back to work. So my guess, guys, is it's all just about the money. That's what it all seems like to me. I mean, if I'm retired, I would not be volunteering to go back to work because I'm bored. I would find other things to do if I have money, okay? To me, that's just common sense. Now, I have no idea if this is related to the story we just covered when it comes to people wanting to go back to work who are in retirement or not. But lately, I've seen a lot of people also request in the comments for me to cover reverse mortgages again. And I did a full video about this a while ago, but that was probably like, I don't know, 5-6 months ago. So I figured it'd be time to refresh this topic a little bit. First of all, what is a reverse mortgage? A reverse mortgage is a loan U.S. homeowners who are age 62 or older and have the equity are able to get from a lender. And the number one reason why most people will take a reverse mortgage is tick-tock, tick-tock, they need the money. Because they also surveyed a bunch of older people who take reverse mortgages, and 56% of them said that they think that they might outlive their retirement savings. So taking the reverse mortgage is a way to prolong your finances in retirement without having to go back to work. And just a quick note here, a reverse mortgage is not the same thing as a HELOC, and it's not the same thing as a home equity loan, because those two things are taking out loans against your property, and you usually get a lump sum payment with a home equity loan, and with a HELOC, you get a certain amount that you can draw on and take out at your leisure. And with a reverse mortgage, it's basically the opposite of having a regular mortgage. Instead of you paying mortgage payments, the mortgage lender pays you. But you still have to cover all the HOA fees, you still got to pay for property taxes, still got to pay for property maintenance, you still own the place, and you still have to pay for all the regular things that you normally have to pay for when you own the property. The only difference is they're paying you now monthly, your lender is, versus you paying them. Now there's some parameters that you have to have in order to qualify for a reverse mortgage. So for example, you have to be 62 years old or older, you have to own your home and live in the property that you want to do the reverse mortgage on. It also needs to be a single family home or a multi-family home, and it can't have more than 4 families living on the property if it's multi-family, and some condos do qualify as well. And on top of that, the property needs to be well maintained in order for the lender to approve this reverse mortgage. And there's also a legal requirement where you have to go through a government approved a financial specialist through HUD in order to make sure you understand what you're getting yourself into and all this and that. And here's what you're signing up for if you get a reverse mortgage. First of all, you have to pay the property taxes, you have to pay for the homeowner's insurance, you have to maintain the home, and you have to pay any homeowners association dues, so HOA fees, anything like that. That's still all on you. And to me, right away, before we go further, this is really the biggest scam with this thing, because when you get a typical average regular mortgage, you're the one paying for all these expenses and you're paying the lender. And in this case, the lender's paying you, but you're still paying these expenses, all right? So that's where, to me, all of this just sounds, a little bit shady. But anyways, let's move on from that. It's been a long time since I walked over here, guys, but I remember last time I was here, which was months and months ago, this real estate sign being here. And I'm gonna have to check if this is the same listing that's still available here, which I wouldn't be surprised, but let's see.
Now I'm pretty certain this is the same place that we saw several months ago, and finally they just sold it. It's a flip, surprise, surprise, and they bought this place for $390,000, turned around, tried to sell it for $545. What a joke, right? But the real joke is on the sucker who paid $485 for it just now in January, which is an all-time high price for a unit like this at a time when prices are coming down.
Now, the other thing with a reverse mortgage is it also depends on how old you are, which will determine how much the lender will be willing to give you. Because the older you are, the more money they're probably going to be willing to give you, because you're more likely to die sooner. And that's the reality. If you're an 80-year-old, you're far more likely to get a much bigger reverse mortgage than somebody who's 62 and just hit the threshold. And that also is true when it comes to the amount of equity you have in your home. So if you're 62 and you just bought the property a year ago, you're probably not going to qualify for any sort of reverse mortgage because you don't have the equity. Versus an 80-year-old that bought the place 25 years ago, is going to be in a much better condition to get a bigger chunk out of the reverse mortgage, if that makes sense. And there's also different ways that you can get paid with a reverse mortgage. They can also pay you a lump sum payment. They also have fixed monthly payments that you can receive. And in some cases, they'll even give you a line of credit, which is kind of similar to a HELOC, where you can just draw the funds down until there's no money left. But the difference is you don't have to pay it back, whereas with a HELOC you do. And when you die and when the property is sold, that's when the debt gets repaid. And just like with taking any other type of loan, there's always going to be fees. You can't forget about that. And with reverse mortgages, the fees are highly regulated by the U.S. government, so they tend to be anywhere between $2,500 to $6,000. But if you're being charged more than this, guys, that is a big red flag, and you're probably being scammed, so watch out for that. Basically, the formula for the origination fees on these loans is it's 2% of the first $200,000 of the loan, and it's 1% of any loan amount over the initial $200,000. And then of course you're going to have your title fees, you're going to have your appraisal fees, home inspection fees, different things like this that they're going to nail you for. There's also a mortgage insurance premium fee, which is up to 2% of the entire loan value. So it's not like taking this loan, you're just going to get away with all this money and it's going to cost you nothing. Just like with anything else, there's a price to pay. But it was reported, apparently, that a lot of people that take these reverse mortgages are generally happy with the outcome of it, and that the money that they're getting from it is what they expected to receive, more or less, and is actually lasting as long as they were hoping for, or maybe even longer. So that's a good thing, at least. And me personally, guys, I'm not against this. I don't have an opinion on it one way or another. If this is something that you're looking into and you're in the age range and you have the equity and you're not planning on, giving this property that you have to an heir or anything like that, then go for it, especially if you need the extra money. This is a good way to live a nice retirement until the end. But if you're planning on handing down the property to an heir or anything like that, obviously this is not a good idea, and you need to look at other ways to be bringing in some income. And to be quite honest, if you're even in the position to take one of these reverse mortgages, you're probably in a far better position in life than a lot of other people. I mean, imagine somebody who's in their retirement age and they don't even own a property, they're renting, they don't even have this option. So just the fact that you have a home equity loan available to you, or a reverse mortgage, or whatever you want to do with the property to pull some extra money out, is a much more favorable situation than somebody who doesn't have anything. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you click the bell notification down below. YouTube will alert you every time I post a new video, and if you don't want to wait, check out that next one on the screen right over here, and I'll see you in the next one.